Om Shanti, good evening.
Om Shanti, sister. Good evening.
Om Shanti, good evening. So, today we will be doing the part two of the first lesson of Raja Yoga meditation. So, if you remember in the last session on Tuesday, we spoke about who am I, right? We spoke about what is my true reality and start living that reality. And so we were sharing about how we have a false identity of this body being our reality, but the reality is something different, and the reality is invisible. We cannot see to this, with this naked eyes. And so today we all believe in what we see, but we feel hard to believe in what we do not see. The invisible energy, the invisible power that we are. And so today we feel very comfortable, knowing ourselves and recognizing ourselves in this physical body, and because this is what we are seeing externally. So we all consider ourselves to this box, this body, as our identity, and everything connected to this body as our identity. But spirituality, shows us the reality of something which is beyond this physical body, a metaphysical being, which is invisible to this physical eye, is the soul, is that living energy, living force in this physical body. And I am that living force, living, power in this physical body. But very little we actually know about the soul, very little we understand the soul, very little we live as soul, right? And so at one point, yeah, we did hear or we did learn that, okay, you're a soul or there is a soul in the physical body, but we never actually learned to become soul conscious. So this whole thing about not just knowing I'm a soul, but knowing means living, you know, knowing means becoming that, or having that awareness very naturally. And so this is called self realization or self awareness, that I am a soul, this invisible being in this physical body, which cannot be seen with these eyes. And so today, that's why we all identify with the color of the skin, with how we look and which nationality we belong to, which country we belong to, or which religion we belong to. But all of this is creating a lot of disturbances and differences between us, and that differences is creating disturbances and peacelessness in the self and the world. For sure, right? I mean, last session we were talking about this, how um, this whole thing about looking external is called body consciousness. Considering this body as my identity, or everything that's connected to body. So all the time, my thinking, my speaking, my doing, everything is in this consciousness of matter, which is completely pulling the soul down and making the soul blinded, actually blinded to the reality. And so not only that, um, we have also we have forgotten that, as a soul, I'm a master. So it's not just knowing, or, okay, yeah, I know there is a soul, or, I learned about this. Yes, I'm a soul. No, the journey doesn't end there. The journey is to live that, to experience that as I'm walking, as I'm talking, as I'm moving along, to be in that real self awareness, to live that reality. Mm. And because when I live that reality, then I will emerge the beauty of the soul. And we did learn in our last class that the beauty of the soul is this peace, this love, this bliss, this truth, happiness, all of these purity. These are the qualities of the soul. And whatever I consider myself to be, that's what I'll start living as. No. If I consider myself, whatever awareness I am in, that's how I will act, that's how I will talk, and that's how I will do things. And so now spirituality is teaching us that change your awareness, shift your awareness, that which you are. Mm. We have been blinded to this reality for a long period of time. So I am that soul. So, a few times during the day, pause and experience. I'm not just this layer of skin and what I'm seeing externally, but there is an internal reality. It's not that I have a soul, but I am a soul. And start experiencing that, because when I'm soul conscious, I naturally touch the silence of the soul, that which we are searching out there. I want peace, I want love, I want happiness, I want this, I want that. Everything is really lying in the soul, which has become dormant. And so the more I experience myself as a soul, or I quieten down a few times during the day and just detach myself from everything that I'm doing, excuse me, everything that I'm doing, or everything that I'm physically seeing, if I switch that off and switch myself on inside, turn within and allow, ignite that light within, I, the soul that I am really, there is such sense of silence, there is such sense of peace, there is such sense of maturity actually. Yesterday I think we had the session on the power of discernment, and where the discernment comes is when I'm actually going within into the soul, experiencing the soul, and the soul is able to see things very clearly, right? And so it's not just about learning, I'm a soul, it's about living that reality. So understand that this difference. You must have heard many, many times, I'm a soul, but how much do I live that I'm a soul? How much am I in this consciousness? And how much do I see others in this consciousness is the most important thing. It's it's a whole lifelong practice, because how quickly we get into the consciousness of body matter, and how much of influence we're looking at the world, we are looking at people, we are looking at nationalities, we're looking at religions, we're creating so many differences, waste thoughts, negative thoughts, peacelessness. And so a lot of turmoil is going on in the soul when the soul is connected, or when I consider myself to be this physical matter, or be in this physical world. So it's a whole journey of a practice of identifying, knowing, and living that soul. Living, I'm a soul. How much in a day, check yourself, even after knowing you're a soul, you live in that soul consciousness. No, it's very, very subtle. It's a very subtle practice, to live that which I am right here. I'm sitting in the center of the forehead. I, the soul, I, the being. But how many times we slip into the consciousness of this body? So one of the things that happens when I slip into this consciousness of the body is that I have become subservient. I, meaning the soul, the master, which really I am. I become the subservient of these senses. And that's why today I have no control over what I see. And eyes can deceive the soul, the master, a lot, because the master has forgotten, right? It's like the king sitting on a throne, and king has completely forgotten that he's the king. So it's like that. The soul is sitting right here in the center of the forehead, on the throne of the forehead, but the soul has completely forgotten that the master. It has the power to have control over these senses, but the senses have completely taken over the soul. So in one way, the soul, I have become subservient to these physical senses, so subservient. So that's why there is no control over what I'm seeing, there is no control over what I'm hearing. The ears are just, they are ready to listen this, that, this. So how much of information I'm taking inside the soul? They say like, no, like, um, millions of information, like 11 millions of so much of information the soul is just taking inside, each second, each moment. And then no, also there is no control over the mouth, what we are speaking and how we are speaking, and the quality of my speaking. The mouth just carries on and the soul feels helpless right after we speak. We realize that, oh, I shouldn't have said that, why did I say that again? It's like the soul has lost that control over speaking and all of these physical senses. But when I recognize myself as a soul and start to live as a soul, then I will start experiencing that mastery, that self mastery, where the soul will start feeling I have the power over my senses. I feel that, my senses are listening to me. That's actually the power of a position, right? Because if somebody is in a position, they feel that they can actually control. But how about not? This is not a physical position where it creates a lot of ego. And then from that space of ego, I am controlling others, but this is more the soul conscious pride. I, the soul, uh, I am the master and I have the control. So naturally, when I am in that position, then my senses naturally start to listen to me. So one is this physical senses, that the soul uh, has masteryship. It's like the soul um, has that control over or is managing these physical senses. But the soul also has three subtle senses, and that's what we are going to talk about today. How is this very little tiny soul, which is so invisible to our naked eye, is working, this entire physical body? I think I did give this example last session that if a if a tiny child, little child, if a little child is doing something amazing, we all get amazed. Oh, how this little one is doing, and then it becomes the talk of the town, right? Like the other day, like I saw 1 year little child, swimming, and the way she was turning and swimming, and as if she's a pro. And so this is what. So when somebody who is very tiny or little children, when they do uh, some task, we feel amazing how this one is doing. But just think the soul, which is so tiny, which is such a power, invisible energy. How this invisible energy is driving this entire car, which is the body, and it's like when little children driving the car, you feel amazed in the same way. This little tiny soul, just think of the power it has. You cannot even see the soul through a microscope. And so, such tiny invisible soul is actually working through the body. It's using the body to see, to talk, to perform actions, to do everything. And so, what is the capacity or what's the power that the soul has? The senses that the soul has, that the soul is able to work through this body. So, at the end, I'll show the image um, of these three senses. So, you can note it down or remember that these three senses of the soul, or the capacity that the soul has, is the mind, the intellect, and the impressions. The mind, so the way the soul is working, this living force is working, is the mind, the intellect, and the impressions. And so soul has this, the mind, intellect, and impressions. I'm repeating it so that you can get it. And so mind, so mind is that, again, that invisible energy which is in the soul. But just think, how powerful is this mind? Wherever the mind goes, it's like, um, whatever the mind is thinking at a particular time, I'll start, the senses, the physical senses start to behave that way, right? Think of this mind that sometimes we feel so overwhelmed with our thinking. So the work of the mind is to think. And so today the mind is like a monkey jumping from here to there, like a wild, thing. It's just running around, racing, and sometimes it becomes so difficult to just to stop, to pause. There's millions of thoughts that I'm, overloaded with. And so, but the mind, the soul has this power called mind. And when I start using this mind, when I do this inward journey into the soul knows how to use this mind in a positive or in a powerful way, rather than the mind thinking ordinary thoughts and unnecessary thoughts and waste thoughts and negative thoughts. The soul starts to use the mind for something that is beneficial. So just think about the quality of your thoughts that you have throughout the day. Just think today, how was your quality of your thoughts? What kind of thoughts did you think today? Or recently, now, recent days, what sort of thoughts you are having? Are your thoughts more just ordinary thinking? Okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, and just keeping myself busy and busy and busy? Or are your thoughts, kind of uh, a little on the wayside, like why this happened, this shouldn't have happened, and I get trapped in those kinds of thoughts, why, what, how, this and that. And then once I get trapped and I feel it's so difficult to come out of such thoughts, I'm just in the roller coaster of thoughts, going round and round and round, the same kinds of thoughts going on. And it's like a queue of thoughts. The thoughts line up one after the other, and the soul has no control over these thoughts. Oh, my thoughts are being negative, that very intense negative, that I don't have absolute no control. And sometimes the mind just thinks something very negative, and the whole physical system is getting influenced by what mind is thinking, because uh, thoughts that are going on in the mind has an impact on the physical body, right? I mean, if you're thinking really peaceful thoughts, how your face looks, how your eyes look, how your gestures are. mm. But if you're having really angry thoughts about something, frustrating thoughts, immediately it'll show on the face. And that's why they say face is the index of the mind, right? It's like the face is showing what's going on inside the mind. And so immediately the way my gestures change, my facial expressions change, my eyes, and the way I speak. And so mind influences the physical system of the body, the senses a lot. And so now that I learn that I am a soul and I'm the master, I will start observing The quality of my thoughts. How are my quality of the thoughts the entire day? What sort of thoughts am I thinking? Hmm. Though I am working, though I'm taking care of my home or whatever I'm doing, but this thinking is constantly happening, right? Physically, whatever I'm doing, but thinking is constantly going on inside. And so, this is where the soul is able to observe. It's like, just think, an example is like a soul is like a parent, and the mind is like a child, right? So parent is always noticing, no matter what you're doing, you're noticing what your child is doing, right? Sometimes if your child is too quiet, then you know, oh, something, what they're doing, some mischief, right? So, or like, you keep an eye on your child, on your children. So in the same way is the soul. When I am in the consciousness of the soul, I am a soul, the master, the parent will take care of the mind. What is the mind doing? So tomorrow, a few times, stop yourself. This is like a homework, okay? Tomorrow, a few times, stop yourself and catch your mind. Observe your mind, what the mind is actually thinking. Observe your mind, and you will always find that the mind is somewhere else. It's like, when you don't take care of your child wants to run away somewhere else, right? Your child wants to be outside most of the time, or a child starts to enjoy your neighbors more than you, or would like to stay in the neighbor's home more than staying at home. So in the same way is the mind. If I'm not taking care of this mind, all of this is connected to soul consciousness. I'm repeating again and again. If you are not soul conscious, if you don't remember your soul, because as a soul I'm that parent, in that silence I'm noticing what's going on in my mind, and that is also called as the power of introspection. You're introspecting, right? You're observing what's going on. And so then you're able to, when you observe what the child is doing, you're able to guide the child. You're able to stop the child from doing something not incorrect, right? And so this way, in soul consciousness, I, the soul, am able to guide my mind in the right direction. So all of this happens when I turn inwards, and when I know, and when I be that soul, I, the soul, am noticing what's going on in my mind. So this could be one of the first step of meditations, where you start to observe the direction of your mind, where your mind is going, what the mind is thinking, because then you will start to have a grip on your mind to think right. This is your first step of healing that's taking place inside. You're healing your mind through the power of being a soul, right? And so when I observe, then I'm able to guide my thoughts into a positive direction. If I don't even notice what my children are doing, how can I actually guide them in the right direction? So it's like I'm able to turn my thoughts in that silence, in that soul consciousness. I'm able to transform my thoughts from negative to positive. Many people ask this question: how can I transform my thoughts? How can I have positive thoughts? Positive thoughts will not come from air. Positive thoughts are not on any of the tree, hanging that I can go and get it. Positive thoughts are generated in the soul, right, in the mind, and it's an internal work that I have to do, mm, internally, so that I can shift the direction of my thoughts. I can shift, my thought process. So from negative, I am taking my thoughts into positive, rather than running, having these wild thoughts of anger or greed or attachment, I'm transforming them into spiritual love, into self respect, into fear, into courage, ego into humility and self respect, unwanted desires into having good wishes. So that's why I am transforming those negative, unnecessary, impure thoughts into positive, not just positive. I'm not just, stopping there, but the soul has the capacity to take the thoughts into pure, so positive, pure, and I can create a certain stillness of the mind in meditation, in soul consciousness. So understand how important is soul consciousness. The moment you forget your own reality, all the chaos begins. The mind doesn't listen, the mind does its own thing, and negative thinking and this thinking and that thinking happening. I have no control, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hear my thoughts so loud, and I cannot do anything. It troubles the soul. So all of this happens when I do not identify myself as a soul. So it's that subtle. We are not just talking we're not just sitting and discussing a story here, but it's something very practical. It's a reality that we are talking about. That's something which has to be practiced. And even to listen to this carefully, not just with your ears, but from the soul. Listen, let the soul listen to what's being said so that it goes deep inside the soul. It registers that I'm able to practice, so that I'm able to practice. And the second power of the soul is so one is mind, and we spoke about all of about mind. And of course there are many aspects of the mind, as you know, that if the mind is sick, then nobody can help me. Today doctors also say, it's all about, it's in your mind. Psychosomatic diseases, all of this is psychosomatic. It's like, they say meditate, do something light, so that your mind is healthy. If your mind is healthy, then your body is healthy. Many times, just mind being unhappy, peaceless, it can affect the body in so many different ways. It can deteriorate body like anything. Just think, if you're having angry and impatient thoughts, how your body starts to react. Sometimes people have heart attacks with, fear, or how the mind works, or lots of things. So it's all about a lot of the mind can impact a lot. And so the soul, have this powerful capacity called mind. But mind is not the brain. Brain is the physical organ of this physical body, right? Which is physical, in which you can see it, which has a different function, but its mind is invisible. But I know I have a mind because I'm constantly thinking. And so you can also say that, when it's like when the soul leaves the body, the mind is with the soul. And that's why the body wouldn't, the body is not thinking after the soul left the body. There is no thinking happening in a dead body. It's dead. That's it. So this capacity of mind is in the soul. So the second capacity or the power is intellect. So of course I'll do this, and then I'll pause, and if you have any questions, you can always write down, and at the end you can ask. But let's have this flow without an interruption so that you get it. Um, and the second capacity or the power that the soul has, or faculty of the soul also you can say, is intellect. Intellect. Intellect is that capacity which filters the thinking and creates a decision. Like yesterday, we were talking about discernment, the power of discernment, right? And so the that's the capacity of the intellect. So the intellect has the power to discern the right and wrong. But if I'm indulged in too much of overthinking, then the intellect also gets too confused. And so the intellect says, I cannot actually make a decision. And so when the mind is influenced by thousand things, what's going on out there, so the intellect gets confused that much, right? So our the intellect is not deciding on a pure basis, but the intellect is making decisions on, say, influence. I'm influenced by something, so I'm making a decision. And somebody said something, so I'm making a decision. So that decision making is not coming from a pure space. That discernment power is not coming from a pure space, because the intellect is too confused because of overthinking. So first of all, understand that the intellect, the work of the intellect, is to discern, to make decisions. The intellect is also called as the third eye. And yesterday we had this in the session, right? The third eye of the soul. So in some traditions, they do show like there is an eye here, a third eye here, which is we can't see the third eye here. It's invisible eye. So because the intellect has the capacity to analyze, to understand, to have realizations, and that's why the intellect is also called as the I. And so this eye of the soul has realizations. When the eye of the soul is, when the mind is filled with the right information or knowledge, then based on that knowledge from the pure essence, the intellect is able to process that pure essence, is able to analyze that pure essence. And so that discernment is coming from that pure space. And so my decisions are right because I'm able to clearly see the right and wrong through my third eye. And so this third eye is also is called the visualization power. It has the visualization power. It's able to visualize. If I say, if I ask you right now, uh, visualize, say, the space you work, your office. Mm, Okay. Or you may say, why are you asking us to visualize the office? We don't want to visualize the office. Then we are remembering all the work that we have to do. So you see how visualization works. The moment I visualize something, my whole being is connected to that visualization. I will start to experience what I'm visualizing. Say if I ask you, okay, visualize sitting on a beach. How wonderful it is. It's a different feeling, right? Visualize a beautiful star in the sky. Are you able to visualize? Yes. So, though we are not on a beach right now, though we are not looking at the sky, the intellect has the capacity to visualize, right? So, in the same way, when I meditate, the intellect is able to visualize the invisible power. So this eye is able to see that invisible being that I am. So the more you meditate, the more you will start to experience this invisible energy that you are, the soul, the light. And not only your experiencing that soul, that light, that you are, but you'll also naturally, you're able to see others also as a soul. You're able to, your attention or your vision is not falling on the physical aspect, but the vision is falling on the invisible reality, the soul. I'm able to see others as a soul as well, their reality. And the moment I'm seeing the other soul's reality, the other person's reality, then I'm not judging, I'm not being upset, because I'm just seeing the pure essence in others. And so that's what it is doing. This intellect is a very powerful faculty that the soul is using to perform various actions of understanding, analyzing, seeing, realizing, feeling. And so this space of intellect is also called the heart of the soul. Mm. It's the heart of the soul. This is the physical heart. Whenever we think of heart, we think this is the heart. But this is the physical heart which is pumping blood, right? But when we say my heart is feeling, what is that heart feeling? Not this heart. It's the heart of the soul. And that's why the soul experiences, the soul feels. Wherever your intellect is connected to, the soul is having that feeling, that experience. If your intellect is connected to something positive, that's the feeling you're having. If your intellect is connected to something negative, that's the emotion you're experiencing. So wherever the intellect is connected to, you're creating an experience inside the soul. You see how the soul works with the mind, with the intellect, and that's the heart space as well. And that's why this is also another eye opener. Who is experiencing peace or happiness or sorrow, hmm, or fear? Who is experiencing? Is your body experiencing all of this, or the soul experiencing? Who is experiencing? Hmm? The soul is experiencing, right? Hmm. If something happens to your car, the car isn't experiencing. The driver is experiencing anything happens to the car, right? The driver feels, oh, this happened to my car. The car doesn't feel, oh, I got hurt. No. So in the same way, the body, if I pinch you, it's not the body who is experiencing the pain, is actually the soul. So the soul is the one who has feelings, emotions, experiences, happiness, sorrow, pain, all of this the soul is experiencing. Very important point to understand, right? We think we are so much in this physical body. If something happens, we fear, but that fear is creating more havoc in the body. But when I actually understand this separation of the soul and the body, this is the body, I am the soul. When I create the separation, I can feel that the soul is having certain experiences. The body is just matter. The body is not having an experience. The life force, until the life force is in this body, the body is functioning. But the moment this life force is out of the body has no reaction, right? The body has no uh, nothing is happening in the body, right? Because the life force. So it's a soul who experiences peace or sorrow or happiness, or many times when, if I really understand this, the soul is the one who's experiencing, I'll start to transform. I'll start to transform what I'm thinking, the way I'm thinking. having meditation experience, or I'll do something to change what's happening in the soul, basically. But sometimes people get too depressed and they don't understand the value of life. Sometimes, they commit suicides, but it's not the body, it's the soul who is experiencing. Though I'm out of the body, it's the soul who is experiencing. So it's not about finishing this body out of sorrow. It's about changing the pattern of thinking. It's about changing my lifestyle. It's about changing that which is inside. And that's when I'm able to give that happiness or that feelings to the body even. Um, so understanding that the soul is the one who has all experiences of happiness, sorrow, pain, suffering, good, bad, and that's why we say he's a good soul. Did you ever say to someone he's a good body? He's a bad body. No, we don't say that. We say, hey, this one is a good soul. Bad soul, stay away, right? We always refer good and bad to the soul. And so the soul is the one who becomes good or bad based on how the soul is using the subtle senses, that is the mind, intellect. And the third one, which we are going to discuss now, is impressions. Impressions or deep habits of the soul. You can write this down: impressions or deep habits of the soul. And in Hindi, it's called sanskars. And so how does these impressions get created in the soul? So our thinking and decision making sometimes is also based on these impressions. These impressions or the deep habits of the soul are very powerful, and they impact us to think in a certain way. It becomes like a vicious circle. So how are these? First of all, let's discuss how these habits are formed. The habits are formed whatever you think. If you have a certain thinking pattern and a certain decision making based on your thinking, so you're thinking in a certain way, you're deciding in a certain way again and again. And so that the moment you think, you decide, and you do, that becomes an impression, right? But if you're repeatedly doing that, that becomes a habit. So any action you repeatedly do based on your repetitive way of thinking and deciding and doing becomes your habit. Again and again, you're doing something, uh, repetitively, it becomes your habit. And after some time, you don't even know you have that habit, and you're doing that again and again. Say for the first time you're doing a particular action, you think about it. How do I do? What do I do here? Should I do it or not? And then the intellect is trying to decide, okay, let me actually do. And the moment I did that, what has happened? It's like an impression has created. It's like a dot, right? It's like a stain or a dot of that action has been created. And then the second time, again, if the same action comes to me, again, the second time I'm thinking, should I do it or not? No, last time I did it. Oh no, I know how to do it. Again, I did it. So it's a deeper impression now. But the third or fourth or fifth time, I don't even think, I don't even decide, I just do it because it has become a habit. And that's why today, unknowingly, we have a lot of habits inside which are sitting like blind spots there. And I don't even know I am doing that. I don't even know I have it. I don't even know that I'm behaving in a certain way which is causing sorrow or hurt to myself and others. And others are looking at my blind spot very clearly. You have this, but I forget completely. I become blind to my own blind spots. I'm not able to see my own weaknesses or sanskars or these deep impressions sitting inside and causing a lot of havoc. And these sanskars or habits are not allowing me to reach my spiritual potential. They're blocking me from doing something good for myself. So that could be my ego, that could be my sensitive nature, that could be anything. They are sitting inside. And so a lot of sanskars, a lot of habits we have created inside, and that can cause, a lot of upheaval in the soul. So, got it how sanskars are created. Excuse me. I mean to say the habits, right? So, repetitive actions, repetitive way of thinking, repetitive way of deciding the same old things, and that's becoming my deep inner habits. And so these habits are very strange because these habits can become so strong that they influence completely my way of thinking. So if I am having a negative habit, it's very strongly influencing my thoughts. And so that's the way I will think based on the impressions or habits I have. And so over and over and over, unknowingly, I'm repeating those actions. And sometimes we do identify, oh, I want to change that habit. Yes, I can change, but that it needs a practice. It needs to unwind. If I just say I have to change and I don't make any effort to change, I'm not going to change. So sometimes these impressions or habits are also created on the based on influence. As a child when we are born, so just before even as a child when we are born, yes, let's start from as a child when we are born. Sometimes you notice your children that you didn't teach them anything and they start behaving in a certain way, or they start doing certain things and you're amazed. How did you know this? You know, and I never taught, right? Oh, sometimes they're behaving in a certain way and parents are really shocked, like, where did this child get this from? But like really a little child, because we all carry forward these sanskars to the next. We all carry forward our habits. That's why the habits are very powerful. So make sure, check yourself so that you're not carrying any such habit to your next, that again it will cause sorrow. Make sure you take such habits to your next life that they give you happiness and not put you again into that turmoil. And so yes, we carry forward this karmic thing, we can say, this impressions inside the soul. So these impressions are also called as like the memory system in the soul. The memories from the past we carry forward. So it's like these three systems: thought system, that is mind; so visualization system or the decision making system, that's your intellect; and the third is your memory system, that you take further. And so these memories will again influence me in my next life too. And so that's why I have to pay attention. So now as a little child, I bring certain memories, I bring certain uh, habits or sanskars from my past, and then those are there. But then now, as I'm growing up, the first interaction the child has is with the parents. Oh, let me tell you how the past impacts the next, is the present. Is if I'm bringing my past sanskars or habits, then I'll start as a child. I'll have those kinds of habits already, and that's why you see this. How some children are like brilliant, uh, mathematicians. They solve any kind of math that you give, or they talk about science, or they're acting like politicians already. Or some children have like already a deep sanskar of like greed or anger in them, and you wonder where this child got it from. Or sometimes some children dance so beautifully. So all of this, where are they getting as a year old child, 2 years old child? That's the habits or sanskars or certain memory system we carry forward. But now, as a child, you are learning from your with parents, and so children get influenced by parents a lot. Whatever as parents you do, you're teaching your children. So your children learn a lot from you, from your behavior, from your attitude. And so, yes, as children, the first interaction as a soul a child has is with parents. And so whatever the parent is doing, the child learns and creates certain memory system inside. And that's why they say sometimes your childhood things you won't forget. And that's why, parents in one way are really responsible of how you are, you know, influencing your children. Um, and so based on the parents' role, sometimes we are always correcting children, don't do this, but I'm not checking myself. Am I doing that? Am I being a role model to my child? But I'm very much ready to correct my child, but I forget to be the role model, what the child wants to learn from the parent. So now, as the child is growing up, the child starts to go to school, and the child, we don't know, the child starts to interact with the world now, interact with friends. And so now the child starts to learn, influence, right? And then another set of sanskars and habits the child is creating inside. And that's when the parents say, oh, when this child was at home, he behaved or she behaved. Well, look, what are you learning at school? Then you start to behave. So, what I'm talking about is how the soul starts to get influence and create a certain memory system or certain deep habits inside the soul. And so, the more I'm influenced by the external world, the more I'm shifting these habits and impressions in the soul. So all of this is being influenced by outside. But what spirituality is teaching is that it has to be other way around. It has to be inside out, not outside in. We're all the time taking what's happening outside and we are behaving like that inside, right? But it's not inside out. It has to be not outside in. It has to be inside out. When I have the practice of meditation, silence, introspection, then I know my reality. And from the reality, I am acting. And what is the most important reality I learn when I have this practice of meditation and introspection is that I am wonderful inside. I have absolute great potential that God has given me, but I'm not using it. I'm so influenced and busy with what's going on outside in the world, and I start to behave like that. But when I have that internal journey inwards, then I start to learn that, oh, I have this potential inside. Let me use that which has become dormant inside. I will start to emerge those true original sanskars, the true original blueprint of the soul. I'll start to activate that and then start using in my thoughts, start using in my words, start using in my deeds. And so understand that this aspect of inside out, I have to go inwards to to see my reality, the potential I have, the wonder that the soul carries. Use that what is within yourself. The more you get influenced by what's happening out there, and when you get influenced, what's happening is there out there is when you don't have a spiritual practice, when you don't have an aim of and purpose of this life, you're just living and you don't pay attention what's going on inside, what kind of person you're becoming. When you don't pay attention to this, you're just interested in what's going on out there and let me just be there and take it all in and then behave in a certain way. But when I'm going inwards inside, I'll see the beauty of the soul, the wonder of the soul, and I'm ready to use that potential out there. And so start using this inside out approach. Start going inwards into the soul and feel what kind of soul you are. Look at your inner beauty. And but if I'm living all the time in the external world, I become blinded to my own inner beauty. Then I'm busy looking at others' beauty. Oh, this person is so good. Look at my life. Look, this person can do this. Look at my life. This is what then I will start underestimating myself and having that low self esteem. But whatever I am searching out there is inside the soul. And so now start this journey, begin this journey of looking inwards. Give some time for your meditation, for your introspection, for a spiritual practice. And I always say this, don't say I don't have time. That's a big lie I'm telling to myself. I do have time. It's all about how am I using my mind. And so this is the power of the soul. The soul, have these three capacities, three wonderful faculties, that is the mind, the intellect, and sanskars, or the impressions. And this is how the soul is working and using this mind to think, the intellect in so many other ways, to decide or to discern or to analyze something, to have realizations, to allow the third eye to open, and then of course the sanskars or the impressions. So now this effort has to be made to change those deep habits inside me that take me towards negativity and bring my energy down. And so that's the wonder of the soul. This is about the soul, the soul. And so not just learning, but it's also living as a soul, seeing myself as a soul and valuing myself as a soul. Om Shanti. So at this point, do you have any questions, anything you want to comment on, anything you felt that you learned new, um, or you want to say something? You're most welcome.
Yes. Sister, I have a question. Is different or same the intelligence and intellect?
Intelligence and what? Sorry? Intellect.
Intelligence and intellect.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Very good
There
question.
is a similarity or that's difference?
Yeah. I mean, intelligence is something, connected to headspace, I would say. Intelligence come from all the smartness of information that I have in the world. I know what's going on this earth. I know what's going on in the space. And we gather a lot of information. The intellect is connected to the external world, or I'm working from that headspace. So I gather a lot of intelligence, but I may be missing wisdom. But when the soul connects, when the intellect connects to inwards, to the soul and to spirituality, to spiritual essence, then the soul is actually learning and creating that internal wisdom. And so that wisdom is coming from this heart space. That is, the intellect is also heart, as I said. And so your heart
Yes.
space is working more than the head space. So headspace, I know how this works, but even if this little emotion comes, I don't know how to handle it. So I'm lacking wisdom, but I have intelligence, about the world and things. So that's how the intellect can work as a headspace or heart space.
So today I have a homework. I need to analyze myself. I need to you told me to and I need to make the changes and especially putting as a first thing no excuses to say I don't have no time.
Yeah.
I have to make it every day to start making changes on myself and see the other one see me and follow me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very good. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, one more question. Impressions. are sun scarf and mayas are the same?
Sorry, impression, sanskars, and
So sun scarf and mayas are the same.
what's the last word? I'm not getting you.
Mayas, impression, sun scarf, and maya are the same, or three are the same as only one?
It's the same. I mean, impressions, sanskars. I'm still not getting the third word. But yes, when you say impressions or sanskars or habits, it's the same.
Yes.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And now habits can be positive and negative also, or no, all habits are negative?
Yeah, as I said, when you're connecting to the external world and you're too much into the matter and then you're connecting to uh, something which is incorrect, then you're creating negative habits inside. And say if you're connecting, you're with somebody who is you're in a friendship with someone. That's why they say have good friends. You get influenced to do certain things which you shouldn't be doing, so you create certain negative habits or bad habits, and habits also can be good, but or pure. And so that's what the habits of the soul, the real sanskars of the soul, or the impressions of the soul, is peace, love, silence, and all of these wonderful aspects. And that's what I have to emerge now. And so when the more I connect to my original nature of the soul, it's also called the nature of the soul, the original nature of the soul that has become dormant, then my whole being is changing, and I have this pure um, nature or habits.
That sister, thank
Oh,
you.
Shanti, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sister.
Oh, Shanti. So,
Sister.
oh, Shanti. So, anyone else would like to say anything or ask? Otherwise, we can take a moment of silence and close the call. So, thank you.